I'm Rich Young III, and this is an amazing thing. I'm here to facilitate learning the Word of God on a fundamental level. So join me and let's grow together and build a relationship with our Creator. And that starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an amazing thing. Thank you for joining me today. This is our early week show where we deal with special lessons, current events, things that happen around the world that let us know where we are in God's prophetic time clock. Today's lesson is entitled, What Will Be the Fate of Iran? We're seeing the aftermath of the most serious part of the Israel Iran war with the destruction of their nuclear sites by the United States of America. Because of the nuclear aspirations of Iran and their belligerent attitude, threatening of their neighbors, Israel, and parts of the world, we know that this was probably a necessary thing, and most of the world saw it as a necessary thing. And I believe this shows us the toppling of the present Iranian regime, because when we see where the Iranians end up from a biblical perspective, we see that the one world government empire that they will eventually be a part of, this type of rhetoric will not probably not be tolerated to get the world into a place where they can join together this way. Let's first look at the origin of Iran from their infancy through time and where they end up from a world ruling power to where they are today. The Elamites are the ancestors of the Persian people, and most of their existence traces back to about 2700 BC. That's as far as any records will go back for this particular people. Most of the research today, that's the earliest known civilization from that region. We know around 700 BC, the Medes, which are the ancestors of the Iranian people of this place, were considered the first civilized tribe. There were many, many tribes, but civilization was not widespread. So we know that they're the first civilized tribe in this vicinity. The Archemede Empire of the 6th century is the first civilized beginning of them traveling outside this territory and becoming a world power. We know that in the middle of the 6th century BC, the Medes were conquered by Cyrus the Great of Persia, and all of the territories became centralized under the Archemede Empire. Conquering these surrounding peoples made the region politically, culturally, transforming the region into a united region. We know that the Archemede Empire stretched to Africa and the Egypt, to parts of Europe, which would be Turkey and what's known today as the Balkan states, as well as Asia, the where what's known today as Iraq and Iran. So they certainly were growing outside of their local area into becoming a world empire. And Cyrus the Great and his Archemede Empire, which was considered the first Persian empire, absorbed the Median Empire around 550 BC. After that, the territories of the Median Empire were integrated into the Archemede Empire. And when we talk about this, a lot of times we still refer to it as the Medes and the Persians, even though it was the Archemede Empire that absorbed the Medes. And so this is the empire that Cyrus the Great was the head of. After this territory was absorbed by the Persians, some of the most sophisticated people of the world were in that part of the world and a part of this empire. Some Most of the time, from a Western point of view, we look at this part of the world and we see them as not being very sophisticated and primitive. But that certainly is not their history and probably not how we should view them, because the civilization of that time, the Persians were some of the most progressive thinking. A lot of the art and culture and all those things stem from them and what they did at that time. Eventually, the empire, the this Achaemenid empire, became a world empire. We know that they overthrew the Babylonian Empire. That was the empire of Nebuchadnezzar, and that reign. That they went in and conquered the world and destroyed Israel, their capital Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and brought the Israeli people back in captivity. And they ruled and they stayed there for 70 years. And we know that after the Medes and the Persians, or the Achaemenid Empire, destroyed the Babylonians, we know that they allowed the Jewish people to go back, rebuild their city, rebuild their wall, rebuild their temple, and they financed it. So we see a very, very different beginning between the Jewish people and the Persian people from this time. And we know that the Persian people were sophisticated and didn't want to, have slavery and all those different kinds of things. So we know from about 539 BC to about 330 BC was the rule of the Persians, Cyrus the Great and the Achaemenid Empire. And so Alexander the Great came in and established his empire, which was known as the Hellenistic Empire, but we know it as the Greek Empire. And they ruled from about 330 to about 140 BC. And the Greek culture was absorbed around the world. They were a sophisticated people as well. And after their empire was dissolved, and when you start talking about the dissolving of an empire, that's something that takes place over a period of time. So we know that from about 247 BC to about 224 AD, a centralized region of the Persian Empire, that was within the Hellenistic Empire of the Greeks. As the Greeks were declining, these people survived even through the rule of the Romans, and so they were continually a sophisticated people, and that's an amazing thing. So we know that continued throughout the Sasanian Empire, from 224 AD to about 650 AD. They had greater achievements in arts and sciences and so forth until the conquest of the 7th century by the Islamic Revolution, the first time of the Islamic Revolution, and the Arab Muslim forces spread the Islamic culture throughout that region and continued throughout today, even through the Dark Ages. They continued, and as the different parts of the world went through the Dark Ages, they still thrived with a sophisticated culture. They had wars, but during this time they still had rich tapestries and culture. We know that they went through political transformations, social and intellectual transformations. And in the early 16th century, the Persians adopted the 12 Shia Islam as their state religion. This particular form of Islamic religion is different than the other forms because the succession of the leaders are selected by the ruler at the time. So we know that the Sunnis throughout the Islamic world will elect their own leaders, but In the Shia sect of Islam, they are selected by the ruler at the time to succeed him because they believe that that's what Muhammad did when he selected Ali as his successor, and Ali was the son in law of Muhammad. So that was the way Muhammad did it. So the Shias believe that that's the way it should be done, period. And so this particular secession was continued with this particular sect of Islam. The 20th century Persia became Iran, and we know that in the Farsi language, Iran is another name for Persia. They felt that Persia was a colonialized word that was accepted by different parts of the world and was not unique to them. So they changed the name to Iran. And so we know that Reza Khan was the Shah in the mid 1920s to the mid 1940s. And Shah is the Persian word for king. So the Shah is the king of Persia. So Shah Raja Pahlavi Khan was forced to abdicate the throne in 1841 due to the British and Soviet pressure during World War II. So after that, Muhammad Raza Pahlavi took the throne with a few setbacks and challenges to his position, but from the CIA and other parties throughout the world. But he was able to maintain his kingship. That is until the revolution of 1979, when the return of the Shah, the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was exiled, came to Persia and overthrew that Shah, and he was forced to run for his life, and he came to America. From that point on, the Shah of Iran was in exile, and the Ayatollah Khomeini, was became the leader, along with the Islamic Revolution that overthrew all of what the Shah stood for in their version of Islam. So we know that that Shah lasted about 10 years to 1989 to when he passed away. And he designated Ali Khamenei as the supreme leader, and that is the leader of Iran now for the last 40 years, and is still the leader of Iran as we speak. Now, we don't know how long that will last because a lot of people say that in their weakened state due to their war with Israel and the United States destroying their nuclear sites, that their rulership is hanging on by a thread, and the people will rise up and eventually overthrow them. Since that time, they've been embroiled in many, many different conflicts. They've entered into many nuclear deals with the world, negotiating many times with the American administration. We know that they entered into a deal with Barack Obama that the world looked at as a very, very bad deal. And we know that in the first election of the first administration of Donald Trump, he pulled us out of the deal. And then in the administration of Joe Biden, he put us back into a deal, which most of the world considered a very, very bad deal that brought them closer to a nuclear weapon than at any time in history. Upon the second term of President Trump, this administration saw them as being too close to a nuclear weapon. And Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as the Israeli people, saw this as a point of no return to where they were a few weeks, even days, from having a nuclear weapon. So they decided that they needed to act. And we'll continue this right after this message, and we'll be right back. In our fast paced world, we're constantly bombarded with news reports from around the world, but none of those traditional news sources understand what's going on in the world from a biblical perspective. So, here at An Amazing Thing, we'll bring to you special reports that we like to call moments of clarity. When events happen around the world that relate to Bible prophecy and where we are on God's prophetic time clock, we will bring you that report and explain how it does. So subscribe to An Amazing Thing and you won't miss a thing. Okay, with Iran coming so close, some say days from having a nuclear weapon. And when we say nuclear weapon, most of us think of a nuclear weapon being put on a missile and sent somewhere. But when you start talking about nuclear weapons, you could have a weapon that you could put in a lead-lined suitcase and taken somewhere to a bus station in a major city around the world and can be detonated that way, especially when you deal with a people who suicide guarantees them salvation. And so Israel saw this as getting too close and took it upon themselves, along with Benjamin Netanyahu, to do away with this threat. And with the United States delivering the a severe blow to eliminate their nuclear sites that were buried deep. Only the weapons in America could have reached that deep to destroy their facility. And us taking part in that, we know now that at the recording of this show, that this pretty much eliminates their nuclear ambitions, at least for the time being. And so that's where we are here. And whether or not America has delivered the knockout blow to Iran's nuclear aspirations or not, the people of Iran will probably rise up and overthrow these people. We have to ask ourselves, will the Iranian government change their regime on their own, or would there have to be a revolution to do so? And so we'll have to find that out, and I think that's just around the corner, because it's not enough time for us to take too long for these sorts of things. Most of the world has come to a conclusion that globalism is the way to go. And so most of the world will have to submit to what the one world government believes, and the nation state is no longer something that the world will hold on to. Even here in America, through the different things that we've been taught, and different organizations from America throughout the world believe this, from the Trilateral Commission, the Brookings Institute. All of these people believe that world government is on the horizon and that we should all submit to it. We know that the nation state is something that America has traditionally wanted to, is a part of who we are. And when President Donald Trump was running for president the first time, people accepted him as a legitimate candidate for president until he espoused that he believed in the nation state. And that's when the attacks and all kinds of belligerency was thrown to see what would stick as he was running for president. And so we see that that is a belief system. Then I believe that most of America believes in the nation state, and but most of the world sees globalism as a good thing. And so we'll see how that turns out. I believe that a few places they will the Bible says that they will get this one world global government that they're so much seeking. But there will be people who are never a part of that. One of them is Israel. One of them is Jordan. The Bible tells us that Moab, Ammon, and the people of Jordan will never buy into it. And I believe the Bible shows us that the United States will never buy into it either, and will continue to not be a part of this global system. And we see that when we know that we protect Israel all the way through the Great Tribulation. And we recorded a show that was entitled Us in the Bible, which talks about the United States being in the Bible. And I encourage you, if you haven't watched that, go back and watch that show. And it's very, very enlightening, and I think you will see what I'm getting at there. And so we know that it becomes, unless you can get the major powers of the world to go along with something, it becomes very, very difficult for them to impart that type of belief system where we all are joined together under a one world governmental system. But we know that there is such a cataclysmic event in the future. The Bible talks about a war of a third, where the third part of the population of the world will be destroyed. We also had a show dedicated to the study of that called The Trump Administration and the War of a Third. So that's another show that you should go back and listen to and watch if you haven't so far. So we know that that's just ahead of us. And many, many leaders around the world, including in this country, have stated, Hillary Clinton stated one time that if you have a cataclysmic event or some event that's devastating throughout the world, don't waste that, because people will do things during times like that that they wouldn't do in any other time. And that certainly is going to be a cataclysmic event when we wake up and find out that a third of the world has been destroyed through war. And so that'll be one of the reasons for that they will use to drive us all into a one world governmental system. And we know the conclusion of that will be that one world governmental system. And they'll say, like, the world can't survive another event like this. It will destroy all of mankind. We will have to come together. And so this kind of destructive rhetoric that Iran espouses today, that's why I say that something will have to change, because they say that religion is one of the things that drive us to this kind of destruction. And so one thing that will be stamped out is religious exclusivity, to say that your way is the only way to salvation. Well, to true Christianity, Jesus said that very thing. Unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins, and there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. So that is the exclusiveness of what true Christianity is all about. And so we know that that will be a part of what brings the world to this sort of belief system, that we all have to join together and eliminate all of the things that are divisive in the world. And so that would be one of the things that bring us to one world army, one world religion, one world political view. And when we say one world religion, it doesn't have to be that we all believe the same thing. You just can't espouse that your way is the only way. And remember, this will be a good idea, that in the minds of the people, the one world government will be a sensible thing to the people from an intellectual point of view. The desire for peace and us wanting to prevent this type of mass destruction around the world will be their motivation. And usually Islam will not submit to anything that doesn't put Islam in charge of that particular belief system, government, or whatever the case may be. So, and that's just a few years from now that this will happen. So we know that after this war, you can't destroy one third of mankind. The world won't look the way it does now. Very little resemblance of what we enjoy today will be a part of that world at that time. We know that probably most of Islam will be decimated beyond anything, but we know a few of the Islamic countries that will survive because the Bible takes great pains to let us know who that is. And so after that, that's when religious exclusivity will rule the day. And so that will certainly be a part of what motivates us to this one world governmental system. And like I said, all but about 3 or 4 nations will participate in this. One of the future events that will take place just ahead of us, we will confirm the Abrahamic covenant. That is the covenant that says that Israel has a right to exist in the Holy Land. And so that will be a part of the covenant. And the covenant will allow them to build their third temple. And also they will try to impart to the objection of Israel that the Palestinians will have East Jerusalem as their capital. And even with the world coming to a belief system that joins us all together, Israel is not going to accept that. And so what they'll do is they'll get done what they can get done, and they say, well, we'll have to address this at a later date. And we know 3.5 years later, after this covenant is struck with Israel and the whole world is going to participate in it. They're going to say, well, we shouldn't wait for this. We know that the Palestinians need a capital. They have chosen East Jerusalem as their capital, just as Israel chose Jerusalem as their capital. And so that is going to be what the world deems as just cause to force Israel into this compliance. So that's one of the future events that is just ahead of us. And that halfway point is when we know that the one world government will have been born and will be in full force and going throughout the world, making sure that the world complies with what they have decided to do. And so that is going to begin the build up to what the Bible calls the Battle of Armageddon. And so, and Israel is going to be in the sights of the one world government because Israel won't do what they say. As the world prepares for this battle to make Israel comply, we know that, for instance, in World War I and World War II, the Allies got together to fight back the enemy of the world, how the world saw the enemies at that time, Germany and their allies and such. But when we get to the Gulf War of 1991, that was when Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait, and the world gathered to force him out. We remember George Bush Sr., who was president at the time, said, this is not the United States against Saddam Hussein. This is Saddam Hussein against the world. And the president was set, it was a world situation to force him out, but we know that the world wasn't there in the Middle East. We know that some countries sent troops, some countries sent armaments, some countries sent money, some countries sent different things, and that was the way that the world participated in the ousting of Saddam Hussein. Well, that is set a precedent. So now we know that that the one world government will have an army, and it'll be up to the states or the countries to decide whether they want to participate or not. And that's why I say that you know Iran will be a part of that one world government army. And we read about that in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1 through 6. All the countries mentioned there, they're mentioned in symbolic names, but I'll go ahead and give them to you names that we can recognize: Russia, Turkey, Ethiopia, Libya, and Persia. And we know, like we discussed earlier, Persia was the name of Iran until 1939. And so we know that under the president that was set in Desert Storm that I mentioned earlier, you know, Iran wouldn't have to go into battle itself, but it wants to go into battle. It, you know, for the revenge taken for the last 2 weeks, the destruction that Israel has, you know, done to their country, there they want revenge for that, and we know that by that time they won't be a rhetoric spewing Islamic leadership and country that they are today. But obviously, they still have some desire for revenge against Israel. And we do know that at that time, Satan will be confined to the earth and will be the motivation for the world going to destroy Israel. And so that's going to happen just a few years from now. And that global governance governance that will be a part of that everybody will be absorbed into is a revised Holy Roman Empire, is what that is. And so we see them becoming that now. And so that's what they will be at that time. And, you know, we know that in the Bible it says, who can stand against this beast? And so that's why where all of these countries will end up, except for one or two that don't join, that the United States will be one of them, Jordan and Israel, of course, because Israel is the country that they're joining together to destroy. And so we know, like I said before, the Satan will be confined to the earth, and he will have his proxies, who are the Antichrist and the false prophet, who will perpetrate this. And this one world governmental system will have teeth at that time, and the one world governmental army, which will become the beast of Revelation 13, a conglomerate beast of all those countries becoming one global empire, and that one world global army that will perpetrate this. And that's where we see, and we know that Iran will be a part of that. So obviously, to become a part of it, she won't sound like she does today. So they'll go through many transformations, but the hatred for Israel will be still be there, along with the hatred of Israel for most of the world. And we can see that because the United States and their veto power has had to veto many, many different things that the world has brought against Israel. And that's one of the ways that the great eagle that is the United States of America has been a friend of Israel. And that is why we are so blessed in our country today. And so that is what we've talked about today in the show. And we'll be back after this message. Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you for listening, for subscribing, sharing this show with your friends and family, giving to the show financially, and most of all for your prayers. Thank you for being a part of our mission here at An Amazing Thing. I love you, and from the bottom of my heart, again, thank you. Thank you all for being a part of An Amazing Thing. And remember, our end of the week show is where we answer your questions that you submit one of two ways. You can email those questions at questions@anamazingthing.com, or our voice message number is area code 214-699-9045. Get those questions in, and thank you for being a part of An Amazing Thing. Well, we've seen what Iran's history has been through the years, and what we just talked about. We know that the one world governmental system that is just ahead of us is Iran is going to be a part of that. So we certainly can see from the future where that country is going to end up, accepted by the world, and blending into the rest of the world with their desire to destroy Israel, which is what's just ahead of us. And I hope that this is kind of, something. I know this is something a lot of times things like this from a biblical perspective are some things that maybe you never heard before. And we say that quite a lot on these shows. But little bit by little bit, we will cover them, tell you what they mean on an elementary level so that they can be understood. And we'll grow together. And thank you for being a part of an amazing thing. And I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thank you for being a part of it. And join us on our midweek show, which is our continual Bible study that starts from an elementary level, and we're still at elementary level and growing and becoming more progressive. And also our end of the week show where we answer your questions that you submit. Thank you for being a part of an amazing thing, and we'll see you next time. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show today. I hope you found this show a blessing. Be sure and subscribe to the show, however you receive your podcast and video content. Be sure and tell your friends and family. Be safe, and we'll see you next time. And remember, make it an amazing day today. We'll see you next time.